September, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office seized Louis Martin's phones and conducted a search at her home. This is the second top-ranking official from the Adams administration to be indicted since he took office in 2022. Bragg indicted his former buildings commissioner in 2023.
Bragg was quite clear today, saying that the mayor has nothing to do with this case or this investigation, but he did say that this particular investigation into Ingrid Louis Martin is ongoing. And Errol, we did find out in the courtroom today that there are wiretaps involved in this case. We don't know whose phone was tapped, for how long they were tapped, when they were tapped, but we know that there were some wiretaps involved. You know, ideally we would find that out if this case goes to trial.
Yeah, they didn't say much about the history of the case, what put them onto it or how it was conducted and so forth, but we showed some footage of her home being raided. In fact, you shot that footage. You were there when that happened. That was only a couple of months ago. Right?
Yeah, that was in September. We were the only people there. We got a tip that that was happening. What we do know is that the investigation started at some point in 2023, towards the end of 2023. If you look at the timing there, it's quite convenient that Eric Ulrich, the former buildings commissioner, happened to be indicted in November of 2023. I asked specifically the Manhattan District Attorney today whether or not those two cases were somehow connected, and he said no.
Right. Okay, let's bring in our State House reporter, Bernadette Hogan, and New York One criminal justice reporter, Dean Meminger. And Dean, let me start with you. This is a case where Ingrid Louis Martin, we say she's the chief advisor, she's been very close, a political ally. She's the wife of Eric Adams' partner when he was a patrolman. That's a very special, very deep kind of a bond that in some ways is almost closer than family.
Oh, definitely. If you have worked with police officers side by side, you look at yourself as brothers. But if you go back and, you know, she's married to this individual, obviously her son, you know, is in, I believe, in his 30s. Is that correct?
38, yes.
38. So Eric Adams was a cop way back then, maybe when this kid was born or just when he was a little kid. So they go way back. But the most interesting thing, the wiretaps. I've said this many times up here with you, Errol. When they get a hold of those phones and they start seeing what other texts and messages are out there, and now if they've tapped someone's phone, well, what conversations are they having with so many agencies in this city, including the NYPD.
Right. And, you know, Bernadette, it's interesting to hear Arthur Aidala saying, oh, she had nothing to do with this. This guy went out and bought the car, as if their joint ownership of this bank account just didn't happen, right?
And again, we're talking about an adult son, right? I mean, it makes sense maybe if he was younger and a teenager, they would have a joint bank account. But what we're talking about here is that the fact that she utilized her position as a top city official, and then shortly after, according to the indictment, this money appeared in this joint bank account, and then afterwards it was used to buy a luxury car. It appears that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has very clear evidence of this, and we'll see what ends up happening.
Right, and while there was talk about it maybe being a promissory note that perhaps this was a loan and not a flat-out gift, the DA's office said there's reason to think that that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, and he said that doesn't even matter, because if you have someone who even issued a promissory note and you were going to repay them, that in essence it still amounts to bribery, because you were doing official favors, official conduct in your official position, accused, and that is what Ingrid Louis Martin is alleged to have done on behalf of the people that are writing some checks and handing you some cash for this behavior. Now, we asked Arthur Aidala, how do you explain that? The cash happened. The cash is in the bank account, and Aidala said Ingrid Louis Martin was friends with these particular developers and had a relationship with them. That's why they were allegedly communicating on Signal. I don't communicate with my friends on Signal, but that's neither here nor there. But the son had a business relationship with these individuals, so this cash is allegedly above board, that perhaps he did some work for them and that's why he was paid.
Yeah, I mean, the old saying is it's not the crime, it's the cover-up, right? And in this case, it gives rise to certain kind of conspiracy charges and other sorts of legal problems for Ingrid Louis Martin.
I mean, but this case is about what she did or allegedly did as the chief advisor to the mayor. But she's been working with Eric Adams when he was a state senator, when he was a Brooklyn Borough president. So we don't know if they'll eventually go back and look at other things, or if other people will pop up and say, hey, this happened to me. So, and once again, I want to bring up, so many people from the NYPD had their phones seized, and we've heard nothing about those cases yet. I mean, we may have a lot more cases to cover, and you can contact some of your sources on Signal, Courtney.
So now, Bernadette, the 2025 will be here in a couple of weeks. It's an election year. To the extent that there are questions being raised about all of these, the Manhattan DA went out of his way to say this has nothing to do, what we're talking about today has nothing to do with Eric Adams. He made a point of that. On the other hand, that's not necessarily going to end his problems, politically speaking.
Right, and it also doesn't help that, of course, I mean, obviously the mayor's name is going to be involved in this story, considering Ingrid Lewis-Martin's history with him. But anybody who reads or is watching New York One, they're thinking, oh, another hit to the mayor. And then they're also thinking, well, oh, this guy's up for re-election again, and he's still in office. It might cause some voters who had been with him back in 2021 to reconsider their vote, to, you know, hit that base that his campaign always talks about being solid. And it could open up a lane for some of these other candidates, which, as we know, it's already shaping up to be a very crowded primary.
Yeah, and unlike the federal indictment of the mayor himself, which he has blamed on the federal Justice Department, saying that the Biden administration was after me because I was criticizing them on migrant policy. This is a whole different kettle of fish, right? This is a local prosecutor, this is a local elected official. It just doesn't work pretty much the same way.
Right, and the district attorney, that's probably also one of the reasons why he said the mayor is not involved in this, he's not a target. But separate and apart is this ongoing federal case. That does have to do with the mayor's involvement in 2021, soliciting donations allegedly from foreign nationals. And it's already starting to trickle into his ability to get public campaign matching dollars for that run coming up. So the mayor could be, shot in the foot in a couple of different ways going into 2025.
What his political opponents, Dean, are saying, what the mayor's political opponents are saying is like, look, maybe he's guilty, maybe he's not guilty, but the reality is he's got legal problems that are taking away from his ability to serve the city, and maybe he should go straighten all of that stuff out, and we'll get a new mayor.
Yeah, they're saying it's a big distraction. So much is going on in the city. Look at the case with Luigi Mangione, just brought back into the city. The mayor working with the FBI and the NYPD. He has to deal with crime, the economy, so many things. But come tomorrow, well, there's a court hearing for him. Not sure if he's scheduled to be there or not, but that's what they're pointing out, that he has to deal with this, and he doesn't want to go to jail, so he's going to put a lot of energy in this federal case against him.
While I have you, what did you make of that spectacle of Luigi Mangione being brought here and the NYPD clearly staging it, right? They didn't have to do it on a pier. They didn't have to have the press waiting there. They didn't have to have all of those guys in riot gear to escort him to a van 20 feet away.
Yeah.
What was that all about?
Well, it's showing that this is the biggest and most powerful police department in the country, the NYPD, and they can do this. They flew him in. They flew him into Long Island. They used the NYPD helicopter to take him from Long Island to Wall Street and walk him in. But the most interesting thing that I saw is that all of a sudden the FBI was standing there as well. And so it's not just the NYPD, the feds took the case over.
It is a federal case. Okay, thank you all so much. Great talking with all of you. We're going to take a quick break now, and when we come back, we'll talk more about Luigi Mangione, and we'll bring you the latest details from inside the courthouse. Later on tonight, the city's Social Services Commissioner, Molly Wasso Park, will be here to talk about the city's homeless crisis. Stay with us.
This portion of the news is sponsored by your local Honda dealers. Contact your local Honda dealer for a great deal today.
It's that time of year again. Get the Honda of your dreams during Happy Honda Days, where you'll find great offers on a rugged new Passport, Pilot with available all-wheel drive, and the powerful Ridgeline. So don't wait. Turn your holiday dreams into reality with a new Honda named KBB.com's best value brand. Buy online, reserve from select dealers, or visit your local Honda dealer today.
Big Apple Circus presents Hometown Playground, a love letter to NYC. Join us on this non-stop New York thrill ride with high-flying acrobats, world-class jugglers, and the cutest poodles ever as they celebrate the most magical city in the world, showcasing the world-famous New York landmarks. Big Apple Circus Hometown Playground is at Lincoln Center only until January 5. Get special holiday pricing at BigAppleCircus.com. Get your tickets now.
It's the Get Holiday Ready sales event with the Ford Crew.
Welcome to our full lineup of Ford SUVs. The all-electric Mustang Mach-E, Expedition, and Explorer. And when you have available Ford Blue Cruise enabled, you can take your hands off the wheel when you're on a highway and just cruise.
And the hats are
fun.
The hats are fun.
Hurry in now to lease a 2025 Ford Explorer for $389 a month for 36 months. Only at your local Ford stores.
Too soon.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Still not yet. Sorry, honey.
now, Mom?
But you never asked.
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell. The time is now. Find your perfect BMW at the Road Home Sales Event. Hurry in for credit of up to $2,000 plus 2.99% APR on the BMW X5 through January 2nd.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Audi. Don't let someone else drive off in the Audi model you've always wanted. Visit your tri-state area Audi dealer to get behind the wheel of yours today.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Luigi Mangione, the 26-year-old accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, is locked up in the Metropolitan Detention Center after a busy day. After choosing to stop fighting his extradition to New York, he was brought back to the city from Pennsylvania, where he now faces new federal charges as well as state charges. Our Chris Welch was in the courtroom today and joins us now with the details. Good evening, Chris.
Yeah, really busy day here, Errol. Good evening to you. We all woke up today thinking we would be covering Luigi Mangione's court appearance regarding the state charges, but soon enough, word got out that he would now be facing federal charges as well. And by early this afternoon, he was in the custody of marshals from the U.S. Attorney's Office and appearing before a U.S. District Judge in Manhattan on new charges that if he's convicted on them could come with the death penalty. Wearing a navy quarter-zip sweater over a white button-down shirt and no handcuffs, suspect Luigi Mangione was escorted into the courtroom. He briefly talked with his attorneys and could even be seen scratching his head and at one point fixing his hair. It was his first appearance on new federal charges related to the shooting death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. According to the criminal complaint, those new charges include murder through the use of a firearm, a firearms charge, and 2 stalking charges. The federal murder charge is eligible for the death penalty. U.S. District Judge Catherine Parker asked Mangione if he understood his rights. He said simply, yes. She also asked if he understood the charges. Again, yes. U.S. attorneys asked that Mangione remain behind bars, and Mangione's defense team did not argue with that, though they reserved their right to request bail at a later date.
This act of terrorism and the violence that stems from it is something that would not be tolerated in the city.
Mangione is now facing 3 separate sets of charges: the lesser gun and fraud charges in Pennsylvania, the New York charges, which include first-degree murder in furtherance of an act of terrorism, and now the federal charges. Federal prosecutors in Thursday's hearing said that the Manhattan DA's case is proceeding. However, Mangione's attorney, Karen Agnifilo, a former prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office, asked the judge for clarity, saying the 2 cases simultaneously proceeding is, quote, highly unusual. She argued the new federal charges appeared to be, quote, in conflict with the New York charges. Judge Parker asked both parties to discuss the matter outside of court. And Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg had this to say regarding that very question earlier in the day.
Speaking generally, we've had state prosecutions and federal prosecutions proceed as parallel matters, and we're in conversations with our law enforcement counterparts.
And his next court appearance in federal court will take place January 18th. But of course, if these state proceedings happen, that could be a proceeding that happens even sooner. Errol.
So now, Chris, I understand that there's some evidence that's come to light that really goes to this issue of, is this a terrorism charge, right?
Right. We learned a few more details today. I want to pull up the notes on my phone because I've got a picture of some of this federal complaint that they released today. And there's a few more quotes, because remember when they arrested him, he had the backpack on him, he had a notebook, and he also had a document in there that actually said, quote, to the feds. It was addressed to the feds. But in that notebook, in mid-August, he wrote, I'm glad in a way that I have procrastinated this because it allowed me to learn more about, and then he wrote the acronym for presumably the insurance company, more about United Healthcare. He also talks about how he had an intent to, quote, whack the CEO of one of these insurance companies. And then in that letter that he addressed to the feds, he said, I did this all on my own. You can check serial numbers to verify it's all self-funded. All the money came from my own ATM withdrawal.
Okay, seems to be determined to walk himself into a jail cell on some level if all of that makes its way into court. But we'll find out about that.
Yeah.
Great work. Great talking to you, Chris. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, House Republicans' new Trump-endorsed plan to temporarily fund the government failed a floor vote ahead of a looming government shutdown. That could happen as soon as tomorrow. We'll bring you the details in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
Welcome to Kings Plaza Mall's first vision center, Cohen's Fashion Optical, serving Flatbush since 1970. We carry a wide selection of top designer brands like Dior, Tom Ford, Gucci, Cartier, and more. Stay trendy with our exclusive $100 off any designer pair offer. Our professional team of optometrists perform eye exams and other diagnostic services with 1 hour service. For all your fashion eyewear and eye care needs, visit Cohen's Fashion Optical.
There's a new neighbor in town, Deluxe Dental, dentistry for your whole family. We focus on your overall dental health using the latest technology and the vast expertise of our dentists. We are able to deliver world-class smiles every time. Our state-of-the-art facility is equipped with the latest technology, and our friendly team is committed to making your visit comfortable and stress-free. At Deluxe Dental, your smile is our priority. Schedule your appointment today and discover the joy of a healthier, more radiant smile. Deluxe Dental, enhancing our neighborhood, one smile at a time.
Megavision Brooklyn, South Brooklyn's optical and designer eyewear store since 1995. Our optometrists and staff offer eye and diagnostic exams, contact lens fittings, and more. Shop sunglasses and frames from your favorite brands like Chrome Hearts, Cartier, Tom Ford, and more. Enjoy 50% off all sunglasses in store. For all your optical and eyewear needs,
we invite you to our office for a clearer and brighter, healthier future for your eyes. Call us now to make an appointment.
Visit VistaSci Eye Care of Sheepshead Bay and check out our current promotions. Buy one complete set and get the second one free on select inventory. We accept all insurances and are open 7 days a week. Our doctors specialize in dry eyes, pink eye allergies, specialty contact lenses, and more. To schedule an appointment for a comprehensive eye exam, call or visit VistaSightBrooklyn.com.
All kinds of things that people want and need to know.
You decide with Errol Lewis, available on the Spectrum News app or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are following a developing story in Washington, where Donald Trump had a government spending bill that failed to pass the House of Representatives thanks to his intervention. That happened just in the last hour. There was a floor vote, and it comes ahead of a looming government shutdown deadline tomorrow at midnight. The initial bipartisan spending bill unveiled by House Republicans earlier this week was shot down by the president-elect. And behind the scenes, one of his allies, an unelected person, has been playing a key role in this funding fight. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla. Our man in Washington is Kevin Fry. He joins us now with the details. Kevin.
Yeah, good evening, all. The bill that failed this evening is one that Congressman Hakeem Jeffries labeled laughable, and notably, compared to the bill that was introduced earlier this week in a bipartisan fashion, this House GOP proposal didn't include, for example, a mandate for safety standards for lithium-ion batteries. Funding for World Trade Center health program also wiped out in this bill, so it was very much disparaged by particularly Democrats from New York. Now, part of the reason we are where we are right now, that bipartisan bill earlier this week was not what was considered tonight, is because Elon Musk went on a Twitter, well, shall we say, he posted a lot yesterday, and that led to, among other things, that bill collapsing. An extraordinary 24 hours, even by Washington standards. Dozens of social media posts by billionaire and Donald Trump ally Elon Musk fueling the collapse of a bipartisan deal to avert a government shutdown. Musk sometimes spreading false claims to make his case. Only later did Trump join in, publicly announcing his opposition to the bill.
Right now, it is very clear that Donald Trump is in the pocket of Elon Musk, the world's richest man, an unelected oligarch.
Musk's influence prompting outrage and confusion on Capitol Hill, leading Democrats to dub Musk president-elect. The top House Democrat telling me this.
Who is in charge, do you view, in terms of who you have to negotiate with?
That's a great question. I don't have the answers right now.
Trump and Musk drew close during the campaign. Musk spending more than $250 million of his own money just to get Trump elected. Trump, in return, appointed Musk to co-lead a new advisory organization aimed at chopping the federal budget. A Trump aide said Thursday that the president-elect is the undisputed leader of the Republican Party, not Musk. Here on Capitol Hill, Republicans offered varying takes on Musk's role.
It's up to us to legislate and not somebody outside of this process. And so if we want to dance to a tune of somebody outside the process, then that's on us.
What do you think of Elon Musk's involvement?
Look, always value input.
What's less clear is whether this Trump-Musk relationship will last, particularly as some Democrats eagerly portray Trump as a puppet or second in command. Trump is not known to enjoy sharing the spotlight.
The big MAGA machine is there, and it is at the fingertips of Donald Trump and perhaps even Elon Musk if he stays within the orbit of Donald Trump. The question is, will he be able to do that? Is this town big enough for the two of them?
For now, it is. And for now, the influence of the world's richest man is clear. And the deadline to avoid a government shutdown is tomorrow evening. So the question is, will they actually be able to get things together to find a solution here? Not a lot of people seem all that optimistic. Errol?
Yeah, that's my question for you. Are they going to leave town? Are they going to stay and work? Is there some compromise being discussed or some group trying to reach a compromise?
Well, look, at this stage, it's very much back to the drawing board. This was kind of the plan that, look, if they could get enough Republican votes, even just to get a simple majority, perhaps there was a pathway forward on this scaled-down plan they were considering this evening. They didn't get to even just a simple majority, which means this plan's likely not going to work either, even if they use other sorts of legislative procedures. And so it's very much unclear what exactly happens now.
Okay, thanks very much, Kevin. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, I'll be joined by a legal expert to talk through our two big stories tonight: Luigi Mangione's extradition to the city and the bribery charges against Mayor Adams' former top aide. Stay with us.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Bob's Discount Furniture. Stylish furniture, quality mattresses, everyday low prices. Oh my Bob.
Game time! Wing time! Now it's a tailgate!
Getting together? The bold Louisiana flavors and satisfying crunch of Popeye's wings are always the right call.
I've been called a pit bull because of the way I fight for my clients in court. Hi, I'm attorney Scott Renecki of Rubenstein & Renecki. We've helped thousands of injured New Yorkers get the compensation they deserve. If you've been injured in an accident, suffered a medical malpractice, or been the victim of police brutality, you want a pit bull representing you. Call us at 1-800-447-HURT. That's 1-800-447-HURT. Call now.
It's that time of year again to get the Honda of your dreams during Happy Honda Days, where you'll find great offers on an efficient CR-V hybrid, spirited Accord hybrid, sporty Civic hybrid, and the all-electric Prologue. Don't wait. Turn your dreams into reality with a new Honda, named KBB.com's best overall EV and hybrid brand. Buy online, reserve from select dealers, or visit your local Honda dealer today.
To avoid digital threats, just turn on NordVPN. Improve your protection against trackers, malicious websites, and malware-ridden downloads. Get the deal now.
The most magical season has arrived. The Rockettes are back at Radio City Music Hall for the Christmas Spectacular. This is Christmas in New York City.
Game time! Wing time! Now it's a tailgate!
Getting together? The bold Louisiana flavors and satisfying crunch of Popeye's wings are always the right call.
This portion of the news is sponsored by Bentley University, a force for business, a force for good.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. It has been an eventful day in Lower Manhattan, where the suspect in the United Healthcare CEO's killing appeared before a judge facing federal charges. His attorneys are not seeking bail for now. And then just blocks away from that scene, Mayor Adams' longtime confidant and former top advisor, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, was arraigned on what the Manhattan District Attorney says was a bribery scheme. Here now to talk through today's cases is Adam Kaufman. He's a veteran lawyer who has worked on high-profile white-collar cases. He's also a former assistant district attorney who spent nearly 20 years in the Manhattan DA's office. Welcome back to the program. Great to see you.
Thank you, Errol. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Absolutely. Let me start with Ingrid Lewis-Martin. Other than her rank in government and her proximity to the mayor, is this really an unusual case? It seems like run-of-the-mill pay-to-play bribery in a lot of ways.
That's how it looks to me as well. I mean, she is a high-level official from City Hall, but if you read the indictment, if you read the factual statement the DA filed, it just describes a pretty straightforward, hey, you're going to take care of my problems with the Department of Buildings, and I'm going to give your son $100,000 to buy a new car. We're going to call it a loan. So it does look pretty straightforward from that regard. I think it's interesting, the defense came right out of the gate, and I saw some of the coverage of the arraignment and said, who in the world pays a bribe by check? And I think that'll be the defense, right? That's where this is heading.
Well, I was going to ask you, is that a viable defense?
It's a defense. I mean, look, is it viable? It's interesting. If you look at the factual statement that the DA filed, they anticipate that defense. And they say, look, we issued subpoenas. There were no loan documents. It's been a year since the loan was made. There's no loan repayment. There's no loan payments being made. So the DA sort of anticipated that. I think it's a difficult defense, as the DA sort of even said, they papered this to make it look like a loan, but it's really not a loan. But, that's the defense that you would probably go with in this case.
Another defense that we often see in white-collar cases involving public officials is saying, look, it's my job to actually help these two businessmen, and if they did something else on the side with my son, that had nothing to do with me. Is that a viable defense?
So that's another common defense. There's no quid pro quo. I'm taking care of constituents. Again, if you look at the facts that are alleged, it's a pretty direct nexus. They pick up the phone. They're not calling DOB. They're calling the number 2 in City Hall. She's immediately reaching out to DOB and saying, take care of this, and then you have the payment. So it looks like a pretty strong case for the DA, but you go to trial, you never know what's going to happen, and there's 2 very good defense attorneys working on this case, so we'll see what happens.
There's a part of this that a lot of us were wondering about here in the newsroom. Signal messages are cited in this indictment. You're laughing because you know what I'm going to say. And in some cases, they were even recorded. I thought the whole idea was that the message was supposed to vanish after an hour. Do cops have some power to retrieve these messages that we don't know about?
I'm not sure. Things don't automatically disappear unless they're set to automatically disappear. Otherwise, they stay on the phone. Sometimes people back things up to their hard drive, to their desktop or their laptop, and so they can exist in multiple places. And sometimes you have to remember there's 2 sides or more to every communication. And so you never know if the other party is deleting or saving. So it's hard to say at this point how they got their hands on those encrypted communications.
Not to say that it's happening in this case, but I know that there were some defense attorneys who specifically try to make a splash in the press in the hopes that some future juror might read their version of events if they disregard the judge's instructions and start Googling and looking around. Is that a sound strategy, and is it an ethical one?
That's a great question. I think it's certainly, it's not ethical if you're trying to get a juror to disregard the court's instructions, right? There is a lot of gamesmanship that attorneys play trying to influence a jury panel in advance to influence public perception of the case. And, fair is fair. The DA gets to stand up, announce the case with great fanfare, get their story out there. And I think it's often incumbent on defense attorneys to put out the counter narrative, to say, wait a second, time out. This is what the DA is telling you, but there's two sides to this story, and I want to make it very plain that we have something to say as well. So I don't think that's remotely unethical. And, you're trying to influence the jury pool. I'm not sure it has any effect. I mean, I think juries, by and large, listen to what happens in the courtroom during the trial. But I do think it's important for defense attorneys to be able to speak out on behalf of their clients and sort of set the record straight by presenting the other side of the story.
Okay, fair enough. Let me move on to this other case. The other defendant today, of course, Luigi Mangione, who was brought back from Pennsylvania to face charges in the killing of Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. Just as a matter of, I'm just curious as to your impression, the way the NYPD staged it, where they're wearing, riot gear and long guns, and there's over a dozen of them, and the mayor of New York, and the defendant himself, of course, is not in a bulletproof vest. There appears to be no danger. It's entirely for the cameras. Does that affect his ability to get a fair trial?
I think that it has an impact. I don't think that it rises to the level of, a change in venue, for example. But it does look like an awful lot of showmanship by the police to try to get, some splashy coverage. It looked like overkill to me, especially, with him not being, as you point out, not being in any type of bulletproof vest. It really did look like a show for the cameras.
Yeah. I mean, they made it look like a prisoner of war for whatever reason.
It was giant, machine assault rifles. It was a lot.
Right, for a skinny kid in a jumpsuit. How do prosecutors figure out who gets jurisdiction in a case like this? The murder happened in New York. The arrest happened in Pennsylvania. There seems to be some kind of a federal question, which seems to be more about trying to nudge him toward the death penalty. How do prosecutors work this out?
So there's a lot of competition. I mean, if you look at the geography of Lower Manhattan, you've got the Manhattan DA. It's not even a half block away from the Southern District U.S. Attorney's Office. You can walk across the Brooklyn Bridge, and there you are at EDNY. Mm-hmm. So there's a long history of these offices, sometimes battling, sometimes cooperating. I think we were all a bit surprised when we heard that that SDNY intended to charge this case, because it really does look like, and leave aside for a moment the terrorism charge, which we can talk about, but it really does look like a murder, a local murder, something that happened in the streets of Manhattan and should be prosecuted really in state court. I noticed when I went on the Southern District website that the press announcement said it commented that about the Manhattan DA's case and said that the federal case intends to follow the Manhattan DA's trial. So this doesn't look like, because sometimes, they both charge and the feds hold the upper hand.
Oh, okay. That sounds about right, that they might want to let the state case play out and then see if because the terrorism charge seems a little bit more tenuous. I mean, compared with a videotape of somebody shooting somebody else in the head, right?
Yeah, I think, to me, it looks overcharged. I mean, I think, to me, it looks like a straight murder, too. The terrorism, the conduct has to be undertaken with the intent to influence a population or change a policy. And in this case, it just doesn't really seem to fit. To me, I think that the terrorism was a bit of an overcharge, but sometimes prosecutors do that.
Thank you for all of your insight. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, longtime Harlem lawmaker Inez Dickens is retiring. We'll take a close look at her tenure in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
Weather on the Ones is brought to you by New York City Ballet's production of George Balanchine's The Nutcracker. Celebrate this season with us at Lincoln Center now through January 4th.
Here's the deal. Following the election, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, Friday nights at 8 on Spectrum News New York 1. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Speeding tickets, moving violations, red light tickets. When does it stop? For 40 years, our office, which is located inside the Coney Island DMV, has seen fines reduced to nothing and violations dismissed with no stress to our clients. Fighting hard for you is what we do here at Jeffrey Ziff and Associates. New York City, New Jersey, Long Island, and upstate. Call us today.
This winter on the Spectrum News app, stay informed and prepared with essential alerts, timely updates from your weather experts, interactive real-time radar, and live forecasts when you need them most. Spectrum News, free with your Spectrum subscription, now available on your favorite devices.
Moving forward starts with getting answers about where we are. What New Yorkers want to know, Inside City Hall is here to find out. And we do it every weeknight at 7 and 11 here on New York 1, exclusively on Spectrum. Here's the deal. Following the election, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, Friday nights at 8 on Spectrum News New York 1. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum. Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Democratic State Assemblywoman Inez Dickens, a longtime fixture in Harlem politics, will be retiring next year. She has spent over 2 decades in public office. Politics runs in the family. Her father was also a member of the state assembly, and she had an uncle who served as a state Supreme Court justice. State House reporter Bernadette Hogan has more in this report.
I love this community so much. I love the village. I was raised to love Harlem. Sometimes when I walk the streets, tears flow.
Looking down on a bustling 125th Street from her district office, Inez Dickens looks at how Harlem has changed and her contributions.
The Federalist architecture that still is strongly vested in this community. This is the Studio Museum of Harlem for all people, for the people of this village and for others coming in to visit Harlem, to be able to go to a fantastically modern studio museum that reflects the cultural history of this village and actually of Black people in this great country.
A daughter of Harlem, her family settled in what she calls the village in the early 1900s. Her father, Lloyd E. Dickens, was a successful real estate developer and state assemblyman, and her uncle was a judge.
They're used to a Dickens being involved. I mean, my uncle was, before he became Supreme Court Justice, was served as assembly member for this same district in the 40s. And my father was in the 50s and the 60s, for the same assembly district.
Elected to the city council in 2006, Dickens worked with former city council speaker Christine Quinn, and there assumed a leadership role.
I said, but I'm not your usual freshman. I'm a freshman with knowledge, and I want to be in leadership. And she put me in leadership.
Chairing the subcommittee on planning, dispositions, and concessions, she drew on her background in real estate.
I became known citywide for land use, and I was good at it because I had come from a real estate background.
In 2016, Dickens won her state assembly seat, formerly held for over 20 years by now Manhattan Democratic County Chairman Keith Wright. She says it happened with support from other well-known Harlemites, like the Reverend Al Sharpton and former Congressman Charles Rangel.
Harlem was way ahead of its time. And the reason it was able to be significant in politics was because, like I said, they worked together.
The Democrat says her greatest accomplishments include helping small businesses, enacting legislation to assist those who are hearing impaired, and cracking down on retail theft.
The store owners, the small mom and pop stores said, we're going out of business. And if a community no longer has small business, it dies.
Remembering Harlem's rich past and present, Dickens says she expects great things from her successor, Jordan Wright, also the son of Keith Wright.
I believe will do better than I did. I think he will surpass. He's younger, he's got newer ideas.
The 75-year-old Dickens says she will continue to work as a district leader, serving her community. Bernadette Hogan, New York 1.
We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, New City numbers find that more New Yorkers are moving out of shelters and into permanent housing. The Social Services Commissioner, Molly Wassall Park, will be here to talk about it. Stay with us.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Kia. Make the most of your season during the Kia Season of New Tradition sales event. Gift yourself some savings and visit your local Kia dealer today.
Every holiday, there's always going to be food involved. But Honda doesn't take a holiday.
You know, everyone wants to have their favorite dish at a holiday and make those memories. And so at Food Bank, we want to make sure that we can supply the ingredients needed to make those memories.
Without our donors, we couldn't do what we do on a daily basis. And we truly thank them.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for your support and happy holidays.
It's the Get Holiday Ready sales event with the Ford crew.
Welcome to our full lineup of Ford SUVs. The all-electric Mustang Mach-E, Expedition, and Explorer. And when you have available Ford Blue Cruise enabled, you can take your hands off the wheel when you're on a highway and just cruise. And the hats are fun.
The hats are fun.
Hurry in now to lease a 2025 Ford Explorer for $389 a month for 36 months. Only at your local Ford stores.
When they come to Garino Dentistry and Associates, we want them to leave 100% satisfied.
It's great just to see the smile on their face. I love when I get positive feedback from patients.
And always doctors available to give their friendly advice.
The staff is wonderful. The staff is what makes it all happen.
And with transportation available for certain procedures, it all adds up to
Quality dentistry at an affordable price.
Garino Dentistry and Associates, Archdale, Mount Vernon, and Scarsdale.
Get yourself a brighter smile.
When you holiday the Bob's way, you never have to haggle to get the lowest price for the best features.
Honey, I want a tranquil farmhouse bedroom with built-in headboard lights, cedar and felt lined drawers, USB ports, and storage drawers in the bed, all for $1,800 less than other national retailers.
You drive a hard bargain.
Aren't they adorbs? Holiday the Bob's way and see how much you can save when you dare to compare at Bob's Discount Furniture.
This portion of the news is brought to you by the all-electric Acura ZDX. Precision crafted performance.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Our city's Department of Social Services says that it has been a record-breaking year for moving New Yorkers out of shelters and into long-term housing. According to a new progress report from the agency, more than 18,500 families moved out of shelter and into stable homes. That's a 24% increase from the last fiscal year. DSS says that more homeless New Yorkers were connected to subsidized permanent housing than any year in recent history. This is coming despite a historic low in housing availability, and it all comes as the department gears up for its annual HOPE survey. We'll tell you more about that. That's when hundreds of New Yorkers, including volunteers, go out and estimate the number of people who are living on city streets and subways. Joining me now to talk through all of this is the Department of Social Services Commissioner, Molly Wassall Park. DSS oversees both homeless services and the Human Resources Administration. Welcome back to the program. Always good to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me back.
Sure. So I want to talk about this. I said 18,500 families. Some of them are singles. Some of them are larger families and so forth. How did that increase happen? Did the amount of the voucher increase?
A few years ago it did, but really this is a reflection of really deliberate work on behalf of the agency and the DHS staff, DSS staff, and also our providers as well. We've been really focused on making sure that we're getting rental subsidies into everybody's hands, everybody who's eligible, thinking about housing supply. We're the social service agency. We don't normally think about housing supply, but with 1.4% vacancy rate, we have to. So we've actually been using social service dollars to finance affordable housing development, and then really improving processes to make sure that both our providers and we at the agency are moving quickly and using data, making sure that nobody's getting stuck. And actually, I'm quite excited to say that for this calendar year, we're on track to even exceed that. For the count through October, we're on track for almost a 40% increase in subsidized move-outs.
That is great news to hear. Without getting too deep into the weeds, though, explain a little bit more about using social service dollars to develop housing and make it available for people at the lower end of the income scale.
So our Affordable Housing Services Program is one of the initiatives that I am most excited about as commissioner. So what we have done is taken the City FEPS voucher, which is our city-funded rental subsidy program, and turned it into a project-based voucher. So the not-for-profit provider gets a contract that includes the rental subsidy as well as some social service dollars. It's a 30-year contract, and because the city is making this long-term commitment, the not-for-profit can take that and leverage debt from a lender. We've had a number of not-for-profits who've been able to use that to acquire buildings. So we closed on the construction financing on 4 of these projects over the summer. It's about 250 units. A variety of not-for-profits bought buildings, and we filled them essentially immediately with individuals and families coming out of the shelter system. So been a really terrific model. It's going to be long-term affordable housing. It's a not-for-profit ownership, and we're serving some of the most vulnerable.
You know, it sounds about right. I'm partly doing the math in my head a little bit, but I think the part that's, I think, new and maybe a little unusual is that you're essentially obligating the city for 30 years into the future, long after this administration has moved on.
I mean, without getting too wonky, it is subject to appropriation, but I think, one of the things that is unique a little bit to New York City is our right to shelter, right? And so the financing community has come to learn that because the city has this strong legal commitment that when we enter into contracts, that even though they are subject to appropriation, given our legal obligations, that's a really strong instrument.
It's interesting. So the right to shelter actually has benefited the city. There are a lot of critics of it, but I've never heard it put quite that way, that it can actually help leverage.
There's a whole variety of upsides there, but that's one of them, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so now, what is the strategy for people with multiple problems? They have homelessness, but also substance abuse, maybe serious mental illness. Do you have the ability in your agency to have someone sort of create, for lack of a better word, a portfolio and somebody who follows that person from place to place? Because what we keep hearing is that folks get turned away from health and hospitals or put back out on the street, or the cops get them, and they're just in the wrong place, and nobody's really keeping track of the situation.
So one of the things that I think has been really important and exciting over the last couple of years is that there has been a real focus on the interagency, interdisciplinary work of serving clients with higher acuity needs. So we work all the time with health and hospitals, with the health department, with the MTA, with the PD, with the whole host of agencies that are touching people with high acuity needs, particularly those who are unsheltered on the streets or on the subways, because absolutely, in New York City, 95% of the people who are experiencing homelessness are sheltered. So that the people who are on the streets and subways, they've been failed by every level of society, and it does take this very broad spectrum of services to reach them. We've been increasingly investing in what we call our low barrier beds, safe havens and stabilization sites they tend to be a little bit smaller, lower density than a traditional shelter. So we work with outreach workers. We bring people indoors to these specialized beds. We're coordinating with the healthcare agencies. And then we're, again, focused on permanent housing for this population. Since the start of the administration, we've connected about 2,800 individuals who had been experiencing unsheltered homelessness to permanent housing. Very often that's supportive housing, which is a really tried and true solution for serving this population. But, we can also connect somebody to, say, a health department ACT team so that they can get mental health care in the community as well.
You mentioned that DSS has helped connect more than 2,700 New Yorkers who were living on streets and in the subways with subsidized permanent housing. And that's going back to the start of this administration. The number, and I don't know if I heard it from you or from one of your colleagues in government, probably the president of Health and Hospitals, that the estimate was that there were about 4,300, a universe of about 4,000 or so people in that condition. So it sounds like you've made a lot of progress, but there are more who end up on the streets, it sounds like.
Right. So the count of the number of people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness, which is something you mentioned, Hope Count earlier. It's something we do every year in January. It's been stable at about 4,000 people for the last several years, deep COVID being the exception. It's not the same 4,000 people every year, right? So we are absolutely meeting need. I think it was last year we placed about 1,200 people in permanent housing, and there were something like 1,100 or 1,200 people who were discharged directly from state psychiatric hospitals into DHS's care, right? So this really does need a whole of government approach, and we're really coordinating closely with partners across all levels of government there.
Does New York need more inpatient beds?
I absolutely think that there are people for whom hospitalization is the right approach. So we're encouraged by what we're hearing from the state, and we'll keep working with them. Yeah.
For viewers who are watching, when you see someone who's in obvious distress on the subway or on a subway platform and so forth, what should they do? Do you want people to call 311?
Absolutely. Not only because it allows us to respond to that particular individual, but because we also use the data trends that we get based on 311 calls in order to allocate resources and to make sure that we have outreach teams going out on a regular basis in the future, right? We have between DHS and our contracted outreach providers, we have about 400 people doing 24/7 outreach on the streets and subways. I'm so grateful to that staff. I think it's the hardest job in New York City. So they're out, they're engaging with people, they're building that trust relationship and really encouraging people to come inside. And we certainly use the 311 data for that.
Okay, so for my viewers, you heard it from the commissioner. Your call is not wasted, and you don't have to just shoot a video and put it on, TikTok or something. And the data is valuable, even if you don't see immediate results. You're telling people who are going to use that data the fact of those phone calls.
Absolutely. We have a really robust outreach presence, but 400 people on the ground citywide is, we're not going to be there in 5 minutes in most cases. If you see somebody who is really in a crisis situation, then call 911.
Okay. You're looking for volunteers to join the 20th annual HOPE survey. This is mandated by the federal government, but it's still a great idea. It's going to happen on January 28th, and you can sign up at nyc.gov/hope. What should people be prepared to do? First day of winter is coming this week.
So HOPE is one of our most important evenings. We go out, DHS staff, along with thousands of volunteers to count the number of people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. Like I said, it's a minority of people experiencing homelessness in New York, but it's really important that we know who those people are and where they are so that we can allocate resources. People go out in teams of 3 or 4. They're assigned a few block radius. They are speaking to the people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness, keeping track, and then all of that data gets fed back so that we can aggregate.
Very important. Sounds very rewarding. Hope you get a lot of volunteers.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for coming by. Always great talking with you. That is going to do it for tonight's show. Now, we're going to be off for the holiday season. We'll return in the new year on January 2nd, but you can still catch a new episode of the national political show, The Big Deal. That's happening tomorrow night at 8. To all of our viewers, we wish you a happy and healthy holiday. Thanks for watching, and have a great evening. We'll see you in the new year inside City Hall.